Let's dive in. Water covers most of our planet, right? From the bright, sunny surface all the way down to the crushing, pitch-black abyss. It's an environment that's just full of beauty, but also it's packed with immense challenges. So today, we're going to explore the absolute genius of biology that allows life to not just exist in this world, but to completely conquer it.
I mean, really think about that question. How does anything thrive down there? How can creatures navigate a world with no landmarks, find something to eat in total darkness, and somehow survive pressures that would flatten us in an instant? It sounds totally impossible. But, of course, nature has an answer.
And that answer, that master key to survival, is adaptation. Honestly, you can think of it as evolution, just tinkering. Constantly refining things, changing an animal's physical hardware, its internal wiring, or even its entire strategy for living, all to give it that special edge in its own unique home.
So let's start with the most obvious solutions, the physical tools. We're talking about structural adaptations here. This is the built-in gear that an animal is born with, and it's perfectly designed for the job it needs to do. This is the survival toolkit.
Okay, first problem to solve, vision. When you get deep down in the ocean, sunlight is just a distant memory. It is a world of pure, absolute black. So if you can't bring a flashlight, how in the world do you see anything?
Well, nature's solution here is just so simple and so brilliant. Instead of making light, some deep-sea fish just evolved these enormous, incredibly sensitive eyes. They're designed to capture every single last stray photon that trickles down from above. It's like having night vision goggles built right into your head.
All right, next challenge, pressure. You know, the deeper you go, the heavier the column of water above you gets. And that weight creates this unbelievably powerful, crushing force. How can a living, breathing body possibly stand up to that?
And just to put this into perspective for you, creatures like the icefish live at depths of 2,000 meters. The pressure down there is just immense. We're talking over 200 times what we feel at the surface. It's an environment that just seems totally hostile to any form of life.
So here is the secret. You don't fight the pressure, you join it. These fish have evolved bodies that are naturally compressed and super resilient. Critically, they don't have big air pockets like lungs that would just collapse. This allows them to thrive under forces that would literally obliterate other creatures.
And this really shows you the whole package. It's never just one trick. A fish's streamlined body lets it slice through the water with less effort. Its gills are these amazing filters that pull oxygen right out of the water. Fins, they're for steering and power. The swim bladder is incredible. It's like a tiny internal balloon they use to perfectly control their buoyancy, and the whole thing is wrapped in scales and mucus to reduce drag. A fish is basically a masterclass in aquatic engineering.
These adaptations make fish the undisputed masters of their world. But this whole toolkit is for an animal that evolved in the water. So what happens when a land animal decides to move back in? This, my friends, is where the story gets really, really interesting.
Okay, just look at this comparison for a second. A dolphin, it looks like a fish, right? It's got that same sleek, streamlined body, and it has fins. It solved the problem of moving through water in the exact same way, but it's a mammal. It can't breathe water. It has lungs, so it has to come to the surface for air. This is an absolutely stunning example of what we call convergent evolution, where two totally different animals end up with similar features because they face the same challenges. Nature basically found the same brilliant solution twice.
But survival isn't just about the hardware you're born with, it's also about how you use it. And that brings us to behavioral adaptations, the instinctual strategies, the actions that give animals that critical edge. This isn't the toolkit, this is the survival playbook.
I mean, just imagine it for a second. The ocean is just enormous, and a lot of the time you can't see very far. So how do you talk to someone miles away? How do you find your next meal when you literally can't see it? Whales have maybe the most incredible answer of all: sound. They use these complex, haunting songs that can travel for hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles. It lets them talk across entire oceans. And they also use clicks and whistles as a kind of biological sonar. They literally see with sound, pinpointing their prey with unbelievable accuracy.
As amazing as that is, though, there's another behavior out there that might just be one of the most breathtaking journeys in the entire natural world. It's a story all about instinct, memory, and just unbelievable endurance. I am, of course, talking about the salmon. So, it's born in a nice, safe freshwater river, then it heads out on this massive migration to the ocean to feed and grow into an adult. But here's the part that's just mind-blowing. Years later, driven by nothing but pure instinct, it travels all the way back, fighting against powerful currents to find the exact stream where it was born, just to reproduce. It's an absolutely epic pilgrimage.
So, as we start to wrap this up, what we've seen is that mastering the aquatic world really boils down to two fundamental strategies. You could call them the two secrets of survival.
So on one hand, you've got the structural toolkit. That's the body's built-in hardware, the physical tools for the job, like massive eyes or a streamlined body. And on the other hand, you've got the behavioral playbook, the instinctual strategy, the actions an animal takes, like a whale's song or a salmon's incredible journey. You really need both to win.
And here's the main takeaway from all of this. Adaptation isn't just about barely scraping by. It's not just about surviving. It's about thriving. It's the process where life takes the absolute harshest challenges a planet can throw at it and turns them into an opportunity to create something truly spectacular. You know, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? We've just seen the kind of genius that the challenges of water can inspire. But what about the deserts, the mountains, the forests? What kind of incredible secrets is life hiding there? Well, that's a story for another time.
Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are diving deep, and I mean literally, into one of the most incredible stories in all of biology. We're going to explore how life manages to thrive in aquatic environments that seem totally impossible, from the crushing depths of the ocean to the cellular challenges of just living in fresh water. I mean, it's a wild question, isn't it? We always think of water as the source of all life, but for the creatures actually living in it, the very properties of that water create this constant, epic battle for survival. They're up against crushing forces and a relentless chemical balancing act. Okay, let's get into it. All right, here's our game plan. We'll kick things off at the extremes, then we'll drop down into the deep sea crush zone. After that, we'll get into the great water balancing act, and you'll see the totally opposite problems that creatures in freshwater and saltwater have to deal with. So to really get how amazing these creatures are, we first have to appreciate the invisible forces they're fighting against every single second of their lives. And these aren't just little challenges, these are the forces that have literally sculpted evolution. Let's start at the very bottom, the deep sea. It's a world of pure darkness, hardly any oxygen, and pressure so intense it would be like having 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of you. So how does anything survive down there without being suffocated or just squashed flat? And this really puts it into perspective. Over on the left, you've got the world we know. Normal pressure, plenty of oxygen to go around. But on the right, down in the deep, it's a completely different rule book. The pressure is hundreds of times greater, and oxygen is unbelievably scarce. So, how do they do it? Well, evolution has given them this incredible survival kit. To handle the low oxygen, they just slow everything way, way down. Their metabolism crawls, which means their body doesn't need as much oxygen. And to keep from being crushed, they don't fight the pressure, they join it. They use their super powerful circulatory systems to crank up their internal pressure to perfectly match the outside world. It is an amazing feat of biological engineering. Okay, let's look at a specific example to really see how this works. Everybody, meet the viperfish, a true master of the deep. This thing is a living, breathing testament to adaptation in the crush zone. The viper fish basically has two key superpowers. First, its skeleton is structurally so strong it can just withstand that immense force. And second, its blood is absolutely packed with hemoglobin. This makes it like a super magnet for oxygen, efficiently grabbing every last molecule it can find to fuel its life as a top predator down in the dark. Okay, now let's swim up from the depths and look at a challenge that affects all aquatic life, from the tiniest amoeba to the biggest whale. It is a constant life or death balancing act with water itself, and it's all controlled by one basic principle: osmosis. So what is osmosis? Well, to put it simply, it's nature's rule that water always tries to dilute stuff. If you have a less salty side and a more salty side separated by some kind of barrier, like a cell wall, water is always going to move toward the saltier side to try and even things out. And this movement creates a force, and we call that osmotic pressure. Just think of it as the pulling power of salt. The saltier something is, the more powerfully it pulls water toward it. And this simple fact creates two very different and very dangerous problems for fish. And this chart here just makes it crystal clear. As you can see, low salt concentration means low osmotic pressure, not much of a pull. But as that salt level goes up, the osmotic pressure skyrockets, creating this powerful force that can be absolutely deadly. Okay, let's check out our first scenario: life in fresh water. You might think, oh, that's the easy life. But for a fish, it's a constant, non-stop battle against literally exploding. So here's the problem. A freshwater fish's body is naturally saltier than the river or lake it's swimming in. So because of osmosis, water is constantly rushing into its body, through its gills and its skin, trying to dilute its insides. If it didn't have a defense, its cells would just swell up and burst. So how do they cope? This number is it's staggering. To get rid of all that extra water, a freshwater fish's kidneys are working overtime. They produce an amount of really diluted urine that can equal up to 20% of their entire body weight every single day. Now, to put that in perspective, for an average person, that would be like producing over 3 gallons of urine a day. It's basically a biological water pump working 24/7. Now, let's completely flip the script and head out into the ocean. Here, fish face the total opposite problem. They're surrounded by water, but they are in constant danger of dying of thirst. They are, for all intents and purposes, living in a salt desert. See, out in the ocean, the water around them is way saltier than their bodies. So osmosis works in reverse. Water is just being relentlessly pulled out of the fish's body and into the sea. They are constantly losing water, constantly on the verge of dehydration. Their solution is this brilliant two-step process. First, they do something that would be fatal for us. They drink seawater all the time to stay hydrated. But of course, that brings in a ton of salt. So step 2 is getting rid of it. They have these special cells in their gills that act like tiny salt pumps, just pushing it back out into the ocean, and their kidneys produce very, very concentrated salty urine. But bony fish aren't the only ones with a solution. Sharks and their relatives, the cartilaginous fish, meaning their skeletons are made of cartilage instead of bone, they came up with an even more elegant, if kind of weird trick. This is just genius. Instead of constantly fighting the salt gradient, sharks just change their own internal chemistry. They hold on to urea, which for us is a waste product, in their blood. And this makes their internal fluids just as salty as the seawater around them. The pressure inside and outside becomes equal, so they don't lose water. They solved the problem by basically refusing to play the game. So what this all shows us is that survival in water is just a masterpiece of adaptation. From the freshwater fish fighting to pump water out, to the saltwater fish that's constantly drinking and filtering, all the way to the shark that just changes its own body chemistry to match the ocean, evolution doesn't do one size fits all. It engineers these beautiful, specific solutions for every single environment. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought. All these incredible physiological feats are happening all the time, in creatures we might never even lay eyes on. And it really makes you wonder, What other invisible, amazing marvels of survival are happening all around us, just waiting to be discovered? Thanks for joining me.
Structural adaptations are the physical features of an organism that help it to survive.